I'm Seth Anziska. I'm an associate professor of Jewish-Muslim relations at UCL, and I have been teaching the survey module on the history of the modern Middle East, which has been running for the first time in 2020 and 21, and will be running again next year. And this is the first time that a module of this type has been offered at UCL. Part of it has to do with the interesting history of the institution, but a lot of this scholarship on the modern Middle East has been somewhat detached from UCL. And so this has been a really exciting opportunity to kind of bring it back in to the center of our inquiries into historical places and periods that have not necessarily always been covered. Well, a survey module is really an opportunity for a large overview. And sorry, let me just say that again. A survey module is an opportunity to think of an overview of a very large geographical region over a longer period of time. And it's a course that will take place over the course of 2 terms in a department. And it basically is an opportunity to think broadly about some of the themes and ideas and major developments across a particular period and region. And one of the advantages of having a survey is you get a kind of taste or exposure to all different facets or aspects of the particular region or period of time that we're looking at. So it really is an introduction to these broad historical narratives, but also different approaches or historiographical debates that have animated the study of the Middle East. Well, one major sort of approach that a survey module takes that might be different than other courses is that it gives you a chance to think about some of the different approaches to historical writing and research in particular space. So for example, in my course on the history of the modern Middle East, we think about political history, cultural history, social history, questions of gender and sexuality, and also different methodologies and different kinds of sources that are used. And when you're looking at one region through these different lenses, it's an opportunity to think with historians and think about how historians have approached a particular place. And so you can learn about the development of scholarship around a particular field, and you can also think about the insights that can be gleaned from the study of this particular region from these different perspectives. So it allows students to think of these major discursive, historical, and political developments that shaped the Middle East since the 18th century, and think about the interpretive and analytical skills that they would need in engaging with texts, with sources, arguments of interpretation, and how we evaluate evidence and argument in often what can be very contentious historical debates. I think the first thing I want to say is, as a broad introduction, we start with an entire exploration of the concept of the Middle East itself. What is the Middle East? Where is the Middle East? How did that region even get named? And the changes that it experienced entering the world economy in the modern era. We look at the politics of knowledge production and the way people have come to understand the region and its place in the modern world. And we think about questions emerging from the late Ottoman Empire and reform efforts that challenged European intervention on the eve of the 19th century. We look at the rise of nationalism and constitutional revolutions. We look at the role of great power politics and things from urban histories of cities during this period to intellectual movements like the Nahda or the Arab Enlightenment. We look at Islamic modernism and the ways in which the 20th century and the role of colonial intervention in the region, the creation of the modern state system transforms the Middle East in the early 20th century, and thinking about topics like Zionism and Palestinian nationalism and the clash between these two movements in Mandate Palestine. We look at the role of anti-colonial struggles, the outbreak of World War II, and the ways in which the events of the 1948 war that followed shaped the region. And we think in the second half of the 20th century about topics like the Cold War in the Middle East, the Islamic Revolution in Iran, the influence of oil, political Islam, and the persistence of the Arab-Israeli conflict. And finally, we really, in the last few weeks of the course, we look at the contemporary questions around the Arab revolutions, and counter-revolutions of the early 21st century, as well as cultural responses and social transformations that continue until today. Well, as most survey modules, or all survey modules in the department, are assessed, we have one coursework essay of about 2,500 words, and we have one 3-hour examination that is a take-home exam at the end of the second term in the third term. But those are the summative assessments, the essay and the exam. We also have formative assessments, which are a way of ensuring that we can include the participation in weekly online seminars, or in live seminars if the situation allows. We have moderated discussion forums, and we also have a formative essay that allows a kind of practice of thinking about how to write historical essays for a course such as this. And we also have presentations which are given throughout the term. So there's a mix of formative and summative assessments, and the essay and the take-home exam are the summative of that arrangement.
I'm Aisha. I'm a first-year undergrad student doing history.
Hi, I'm Louis Radley. I'm a second-year history student.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a module that I tell all my friends about. I absolutely love this module because it kind of encapsulates everything that I kind of came to do history as a degree for. I love that we're learning about the contemporary global politics, and just how the structure of the Middle East and the state formations, how it was formed. We can learn the history of that, and then that can be applied to just contemporary global politics. So it's really interesting for me in that way. I think it's mainly the different perspectives that you learn, and just knowing how to critique different scholarships is really interesting, because you really do read a whole variety of different people and their perspectives on a certain topic, and then you learn how to critique them in a way which is correct, but also how to bring in other scholarships from other individuals as well, and you can kind of determine which one you agree with the most and which one you don't so much agree with.
For me, personally, the most challenging part of this module is also, the reason why it's such an excellent and an interesting module, as well as important, because the history studied is so relevant today. For example, learning about Israel and Palestine holds great historical significance, because understanding the history of the region is instrumental in progressing towards a resolution for the ongoing situation there, which is an important region with, known as the Holy Land by, major monotheistic religions. And, I would argue there is difficulty in discerning accurate historical narratives due to the sort of the projection of nationalist feelings and sort of aspirations onto history by powers in the region today, in an effort to create nations for a sort of historical nationalist charter. For me, my favorite topic has been learning about the history of Israel and Palestine. I knew relatively little prior to taking this module, and I've finally found sort of a specific area of interest that I'm super passionate about. So, so much so I would love to, do my dissertation on this and potentially pursue my master's and my career even around this. And I think the fact that the history of the area is inextricably linked to the issues there today is so important. It's something I would love to strive towards and see a solution to in my lifetime, due to the years of sort of varied levels of violence and pain in the region, and sort of arguably the naivety or the even to an extent miseducation in some places in the West about the region, and most people don't necessarily go to university knowing what they want to do afterwards, and one day you might suddenly discover the inner module is you're arguably your calling card, and I think this module has sort of provided that. And I mean this module is really is taught by sort of one of the best people to learn from academically about Palestine and Israel, Seth Anziska. And I'm outside of class. I'm currently reading his book Preventing Palestine, which is, fantastic. And, you're sort of learning in effect with a direct lineage to some of the most important intellectual figures on the topic in the 20th century. People such as Halidi and Said, which brings me to something else that is, so good about the module. Like my favorite source personally has been the fact that my favorite source personally is Orientalism by Edward Said, and you sort of begin the course by studying that, and it really challenges the way in which the West has traditionally looked at the region and looks at the region in the contemporary world as well.
So I'm currently writing my essay, and I'm writing it on if the shifting attitudes of women and sexual minorities in the Middle East can be explained by the religious laws and values of Islam. And the great thing about degree level history is that if you don't necessarily agree with the question, you can dispute it in your answer, which is exactly what I'm doing. And I'm saying how it's not just, they can't only be explained by religion. There's a whole different element of colonization and culture, which has been embedded in these states, which makes it really interesting.
I would say throw yourself sort of in head first and try and challenge yourself or try something new. I wouldn't be afraid to study something completely new, because you never know. I mean, from a personal perspective, you might end up finding something that you're really passionate about, or gives your career a sense of direction, or your degree a sense of direction. This module really has done that for me. I think I've found I've got a clear idea of something that I really care about, quite passionately about, and I'd like to pursue further academically. But even if I don't, I've developed a real personal passion of mine as well.